While several organizations have been facilitating youth exchange programs for youth within the country, there are groups that have organized dialogue events that bring together youth representatives from civil and political groups in Sri Lanka and those from the Sri Lankan diaspora. A recent visit of parliamentarians and political activists to the United Kingdom was organized by International Alert in partnership with the Royal Commonwealth Society and the One Text initiative. I spoke to some of the members from the delegation. There are diaspora groups that are keen on investing, keen on contributing towards post-war reconstruction, but they have voiced some concerns about what is taking place in Sri Lanka and some of the concerns that perhaps prevent them from being more positively engaged. So Raghu, did these concerns come up in some of the discussions and how were they addressed?
Yes, obviously, because when we had meetings with the diaspora, regardless of the ethnicity what they belongs to, almost all the diaspora groups raise these concerns about good governance and what's happening in Sri Lanka and whether is it safe to come to Sri Lanka and invest and all that. Apart from that, also there were also comments made by some business people saying that they have been trying to get in touch with the officials here in Sri Lanka, but the response from here was so poor, so that they couldn't get engaged in any sort of activities here. So that was a request posed by the some of the business people, saying that when you go back, please tell your government officials to respond to our request. So that sort of things took place.
I think what happened, what was the outcome of our trip and going as a cross-section of parliamentarians, politicians, they saw that there's a difference. I mean, we were also the third generation politicians who were actually participating in that program. So they actually realized something positive, that we were working together and there is some sort of hope, in the country if they come forward. But to be honest, as Raghu mentioned in the point earlier, they still do not have the correct link into coming and actually getting actively involved in anything that they, we met some best people. I think there were some real good academics. They have gone professionals and various people, but they did not know how to contribute into Sri Lanka. So that is one area, I think, out of our trip, what we learned and what we want our country to do, or the government to do, is to actually build up a link so that they can easily come and communicate with all of us. So I think that is where we are on the verge. Actually, Vasantha has taken initiative to make a report, which I had to give my submission still, but which is going to be on the correct way and the positive way of doing things.
I would also like to go back to one of the points that Harin was talking about, where I think one of the key issues of this meeting we had was that we were parliamentarians that were first-time parliamentarians, and we had not been involved with the war in a sense, and we were freshers as well, and we were not associated with the baggage of the past, as it were. And we were going for the first time as young parliamentarians to speak to the diaspora, and some of the diaspora, like the second generation and the third generation that we met, were very friendly, asking us what is happening, what should we do. They didn't have too many preconceived notions. They had read something about the country, but it was more out of interest. Whereas the engagement with the Tamil diaspora was different, because some of them had a lot of prejudices, and some of them maybe rightly so, because some of them had suffered a lot of emotional scars when they were in Sri Lanka for whatever reason. When you have a war for 30 years, you do suffer. Everyone, particularly people living in those areas, suffer particularly. So we were particularly sensitive to that, and I think one of the reasons that we were successful was because the delegation wanted to not prove the diaspora wrong in everything they threw at us, and sometimes they threw hard accusations which some of us didn't always agree with. But our intention at the end was to send a message to the diaspora that we consider you as part of this country.
But like your individual party policies are fairly different in terms of engaging the diaspora groups. Have you come to a consensus on what you see their engagement to be? Is it like restricted to economic development, or do you see it as having a more sort of constructive role in the political realm as well?
On the last note, what we are going to do after our trip, I think we have all the delegation have come to a conclusion that we will prepare a common report, and that will be submitted to all the party leaders. Some of our recommendations on engaging diaspora in post-war Sri Lanka in terms of economic development, in terms of political solution and so on. So we are working on it. Hopefully we should be able to finish it by end of this month, and hopefully we are planning to release it to the press as well.
Okay, but Vasantha, you mentioned there was some especially among the Tamil diaspora, there was some preconceived notions about what Sri Lanka is now and what had taken place. So some of the things which have been highlighted, I'm again referring to the Tamil National Alliance, was the fact that there is a reluctancy to engage because of the, say, heavy military presence in the north and east, and some other, there is a lack of transparency. These are some of the things that have been cited. How did you address it, or what was the sort of response they were expecting from you?
No, we addressed the questions put to us as honestly, as truthfully as we could, and there were some issues to which we couldn't, I think, give ultimate solutions, because we are members of parliament, but we can't guarantee certain solutions. We can only put them, as Raghu and Harin have pointed out before. We can only make our recommendations, and we as a group agree on certain things, certain facts, and we are going to make those recommendations very strongly to our party leaders and to the press. Whether they accept it and take it forwards is really out of our hands, but at least from the point of view of the diaspora, they will at least realize that this was not a group of MPs that came on a joyride. We came, we listened to what they had to say, and we are doing in our own way what we can to try to implement what we think are viable and good suggestions. I mean, to give one very small example, one of the basic things that they suggested was, instead of celebrating the victory of the war, which we do, declare it as a day of national mourning where we acknowledge everybody who died in the war. Just shift the focus. There are lots of Sri Lankans celebrated by eating kiribats on the street, but that happened in this part of the country. In the north of the country, there may have been some who were relieved, but to many people, they had lost a lot of lives, particularly in the last so many days. They had lost relatives, and some of them were still in mourning while celebrations were going on in other parts of the country.
Most of the parents, especially in the north and east, they have lost their children, they have lost their loved ones, but they don't know on which day they have been, they have died. So I mean, so they don't have a day of, remembering them. So to accommodate all these people, it might be same in the soldier side as well. So to accommodate all these group, if we can have a day of national day of mourning or remembering their lives, I think that would give a good signal towards a reconciliation path.
Harin,
anything to add to what they explained?
I think pretty much covered everything, but as Vasantha said, what's the depth of what they were saying is that there are no winners in this war. We all lost. So end of the day, what we told the worst diaspora, I may call it worse, like the extreme diaspora, who are really hostile in the beginning. When we actually at one meeting we met, they were really angry. They were having a lot of issues. I mean, they were very unhappy with all the sort of things that the government, just like you said about the military presence to etc. And they were really hitting hard at us and saying, what can you all do? You're just a member of parliament, from young parliaments. You all would not be even be heard back at home. So, but what we try to manage it is, I said, war is not going to be the next option. There's not going to be a war again. So we all have lost lives, and we all mentioned that to them clearly. And there's quite a lot of development is happening. But as you said, a lot of transparency, etc., has to take place of this kind of work, and actually see the real. I mean, most of these soldiers have been rehabilitated, send them out, but really for them to sustain, whether they have their income sorted out, if their lands have been sorted out, is a big issue. Even at this current juncture, they're discussing about this land issue, which is going to be a real problem for them. So those kind of issues are still there, but this all could be sorted out on a negotiation path, and you do not need to resort to war again.
Vasantha, Harin, Raghu, thank you so much for joining us on Connections. I think you highlighted some very key points, and looking forward to the report and how it's going to be taken up from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.